You alright? My name's Paul. I've got autism and I make random videos based on my version of autism and the way my head works. And I stick the videos on the internet just in case you fancy giving them a watch. And I hope you're doing alright. Anyway, a couple of updates about the channel and then we'll crack straight on with the topic, which is autism and medication, because I've really got to figure out how to talk about it. I've got no notes, no nothing, just my recording of sound on another screen, because I like to just see where my brain takes me. But a couple of updates about the YouTube channel. You might have noticed I've updated some thumbnails, and if you've never seen me before, I've updated some thumbnails. And I've also got rid of about 30 videos, and I've hidden quite a few of the series things that were on there. And that's just because I'm trying to streamline it. I want everything to have its place. So whereas with some of the videos I've removed, talk about life in general, well, I now do that on Patreon. So I've removed those sort of dedicated videos. They're not... I want everything to have its box that it belongs in, because I've got OCD in real life and I've got it electronically as well. So I just want everything to be in its place. I'm also going to do something I've not done before, and that is I'm putting the future of this channel in your hands. I want to know what you want to watch. I want to know ideas for a series. I want to know ideas for autism and what do you want me to cover? What do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to wrap my strange brain around? And the reason I'm asking is because I just don't have time at the minute to do that bit as well. Because life gets busy. I keep getting things wrong. You know, that's just my life. I always will, and I accept that. It's not about dwelling on what you've done wrong. It's about how you make it better to not do it again. And I've become too work orientated again. I've become too work heavy. So my personal has suffered. And what I need to do is rebalance. So slowly but surely, I'm going to be making some changes to try and give me a bit of life balance back. One of those things is to now approach my employer about a 9-day fortnight, so I can get an extra 26 days off a year. So that's going to be time consuming. And I'm also still doing a course that's driving me up the wall. I've got one more exam to do, and then hopefully I'll pass them all, touch wood, and I won't have to do any learning ever again, fingers crossed. So because I'm a bit short on the time, I can't think of the video and make it. I'm just asking you, what do you actually want to watch? What topic have I not covered that you're interested in? What have I not said which you want more information potentially on? You let me know, and I will have no problem making those videos. So email me at oldandautistic@gmail.com. And also in the community for the channel, I put a post up saying new topics welcome. You can also write under that as well, and I will make sure I will look out for topics in both. And that would be much appreciated. Anyway, let's try and figure this one out. Autism and medication. So if you were to look in my personal life, my existence, my face-to-face, I can touch that person's face of another human. Every person I'm aware of in that real-life design, I'm the only one who doesn't take any medication for any related autism reason. So some people will take medication for depression, low mood, anxiety. Some people will take it because of a comorbid reason, such as ADHD, because the medication is available for those things. But I don't take it because every type of medication is a blocker of some variety. It's a hormone blocker, it's a chemical blocker, it's a neuron blocker. None of them are a fix, a remedy, or a solution. They're not going to make you better. They keep you in a state of flux. And I don't like that. You know, and just as autism is as individual as a fingerprint across all of us, The reasons I don't want to take medication for a related reason could vary from everybody. But I know my reasons and I'll try and explain them. And I have one major reason, one huge, huge reason, which people might not relate to, but it's still my reason, and I'll get to it. But what's interesting and important, I suppose, from my perspective about medication is there isn't a soul taking medication because of autism. It can be misconstrued that people are taking it because of autism, but that's not the case, because if it was autism, we would all be on medication and we're all not. Like when people say, I can't work because I'm autistic. No. You can't work because of your version, your type, where you sit on the autism spectrum. You can't work because of that. Otherwise, we all couldn't work. So the terminology matters in this case. But when it comes to medication, no one's taking it because they're autistic. They're taking it because of a reactionary measure which happens in the world. So I look at my life and my existence. Nearly everything I'm involved in makes no sense to me whatsoever. I've never cared about ego. I've never cared about finances. I don't care about your job title. I just care that you're a decent person. I look around and people don't like other people because of the colour of their skin. That is insane to me, because it's just a different colour. They're bothered about colours. It doesn't do anything. It's a shade. Who's bothered? I find that nuts. I find it crazy that people will read things in certain literature and they despise an entire race or area of the world from a book because it told them to. The world, what I'm getting at is the world makes no sense to me. Now, I accept a lot of that, and some people can't. So they will resort to medication because it chews them up too much. Now, they're just my things. Other people will have their own. Of course they will. Some people can be around horrible people and have no way of escaping them. It becomes too stressful. They end up on medication. I get it. But what I'm saying is, just because you wake up every day with autism in your bones, that is not the reason people are taking medication. There are a lot of reasons people could assume that, because don't forget, learning disabilities. Autism is classed as one, but I don't have a learning disability. I have my difference in process. I have my alternative mindset. I am steeped in logic and no emotion when it comes to making sense of things around me. So I create, because of the way I'm designed, nothing but disconnect. I'm also radically honest. I will tell you the truth, whether it gets me in trouble or it doesn't. Yet I'm the most distrusted human being in my circle, because I'm not trying to do anything weird, but everyone just assumes because you're so upfront that you're being manipulative. It's a weird place to be. So when you live like that consistently, it's enough to send you to medication, because it's going to cause you depression. It's going to stress you out. You're going to get anxious about why none of this lines up. Why you're saying 1 + 1 = 2, and you're the only one with that answer, and everybody else has got a different number. It's a strange feeling. It can bring you down if you're not awake to it. But I did take medication, which was citalopram. And that is one that some autistic people take to manage anxiety and stress. So let me tell you why I ended up on it. Because this was before I knew I was autistic. But it was also enough for me to see why I never wanted to be on something like this, and then what I did to get out of it. But let's have a go. I got a phone call one day, and it was an old friend. And I'm going to try and condense this story. You know what I'm like with my stories. But he wanted me to go and work for him because he needed someone he could trust. Now, I've just told you, no one trusts me for some stupid reason. I'm not after anything. I never am. But people are sort of waiting for me to be after something. I've had people leave comments going, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about you. No, it's weird. There's nothing. Them same people are going to get used by narcissists, but I'm the weird one, apparently, you know? So he said he trusted me. He wanted me to go and work for him because he was after someone he could trust to be his assistant. I heard the word trust with my background and how I'm treated. I was gone. I went. And I left England, went to Scotland, and I went to work for him. And it quickly transpired that I was just there to work the night shifts, and I never got to spend time with my old friend because he was doing whatever he wanted to do. So I was working in Scotland 6 days a week, working the worst shift, and had no one around. It was crap. It was boring. It was nonsense. And then he'd sold me the I need someone I can trust, and then continued to believe, or went on to believe, every lie and every bit of gossip and drama that all these silly people were making up and using my name on it. Now, I wasn't the one making up gossip. They have to live with their, reason for that. But he would listen to every piece of gossip, and every single time I would have to talk my way out of this gossip. Say, I didn't do that. Here's a reason I couldn't do that. Like at the time, I was having secret driving lessons. And at the time I should have been somewhere involved in some of this gossip, I was actually on a driving lesson. I had a driving instructor as evidence, and it was like, right, I'm actually doing driving lessons, and there's no way that could have happened because I was actually off the park at the time. So if you want to I'll text the guy and say, what time was my appointment? What time was my driving lesson today? And he'll tell you the time, so I don't even egg him on or give him any encouragement. How about I do that? And I did. And he texted, and he was like, oh, it was at 10:30 today. And whatever was meant to have happened should have happened at 11. My driving lesson was for 1.5 hours. So I constantly had to do these proving things to my old friend because people would make stuff up consistently. And he never cottoned on or never had my back and never said, that wouldn't have happened, that's not his character. He always believed everyone else, and I had to fight my way out of the corner, which is ridiculous. But, that's the past. And if I'd lived there, I wouldn't be able to live in today, would I? I made those mistakes, so I don't have to in the future. But long story short, and I'm trying to make this as short as I can, but that stuff happened all the time. I worked a rubbish shift. It was busy. It was understaffed. It was horrible. I ended up in front of a doctor because I was empty. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't enjoying anything. I hated what I did. But at the time, I was a habitual people pleaser. So what would happen is I would be treated crap by everybody else, and I would still want the best for them. And that was why I was there. It was my friend's first year as a manager. That was all his, and I wanted him to do so well. And do you know what happened at the end of the year? It was one of the smallest places, and it won Park of the Year. He got £17,000 in his bonus. Do you know how much I got? Nothing. But that was then, not now. And I just ended up in front of a doctor, and I was feeling rubbish. I was feeling terrible, but I didn't know how to explain that. So the doctor, in all of her credit, she was the greatest doctor I've ever seen, and I only ever saw her once. She just started asking me lots of questions. And at the end of it, she goes, sorry to have to tell you this, but you are severely depressed. It's like, you are pausing before you speak. You take a sigh before you start speaking. You'll stop halfway through a sentence and you just don't carry on. I've asked you about things you're looking forward to, and you're not looking forward to anything. You were just a shell of a person. She said, so I'm going to do 2 things for you. She says, here is an open-ended sick note, because it sounds very much like your work is making you depressed. This is an open-ended sick note for you to take whenever you want, and it'll last for 6 weeks. She says, and then just come back and see me. I'll give you another one until you start feeling better, because you need to take some time for you. And here is a prescription, and this is for citalopram. You need to start taking this X amount of times a day, and it'll help. But again, because I was the habitual people person, needing everybody else to be okay and happy, even though my old friend wasn't there for me as a friend anymore, and he was believing all the hype everybody else would lie about me, I didn't want to affect his wage budget. I didn't want to affect his bottom line. I didn't want him to have to work more. I didn't want him to have to find someone to fill in for me, because that was how stupid I used to be. So I never cashed in that sick note. But what I did do was I started taking the citalopram. I started taking the medication. And after a month, it started to kick in. And what I realised was I could still feel the anxiety and I could still feel the stress because every single day I started work at 5 p.m., 6 days a week. And I would be on eggshells the second I woke up knowing I had to go to work. And then the last hour I would just sit there on the sofa or on a chair, dressed, just waiting to go in. Because I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't do anything because I hated the work so much. And I would just be full of fear to go into work. It was horrid. Honestly, looking back, it's like, what were you doing, you idiot? But that's what people pleaser does. You know, as long as everybody else is all right, I'll suffer. It doesn't matter. And what I noticed is, after about a month, that feeling of sheer fear, terror, hatred, anxiety, everything was kind of a lot less. But I could still feel it. It was like somebody had thrown a numbing blanket over the top of it. So it was kind of like a pan of water bubbling away. Just gently bubbling, and then someone comes and puts a lid on it. So the bubbles are not strong enough to knock the lid off, but you can still know it's there. That's how I felt. I could still feel those feelings, but something was making it numb to not accept those feelings. That was a horrible feeling, to know your body still wants to react that way, but something's stopping it. But I also hated something else more than that. I hated that every day I would wake up and the first thing I had to do before I could even just enjoy the morning, if there was ever a way of doing that, to just come around naturally. First thing I had to do, crinkle that medication packet, pop them open, take the medication, stick some toast on to have with the tablets, and have an alarm set on my phone all the time because I've got such a terrible memory I would never have remembered to take them. Always these alerts on my phone going off, and it's like, oh, I need to take my medication. And I was not embarrassed by it, but I didn't want anyone knowing. So every time it'd make a noise, I'd sneak off, go and get some soda water or something. I'd take the medication, come back. It was horrible. And I know I've said long story short several times, but this is as short as I can make it. You know, this guy ultimately went and worked somewhere else and left me there in the end. And I remember at the end of that season, because the medication had taken full effect by then, I realised that I was very much going through the motions, but I didn't realise how much I was until I had this realisation where, let's say there was a team party, the end of the year party where we all get together, free beer, just, you know, we have a few drinks, say goodbye to each other, and then the day after or the day after that, we all go our separate ways and go back to wherever we came from. That was happening on, I'm sure, a Tuesday. But the Thursday before, I was sat watching the television in my accommodation, just zoned out, watching it, waiting for the week after to arrive. And this was just before 8 p.m. I'd made a few runs to Manchester and dropped off some of my stuff, so I literally just had what I could put in my car. That was my last run, and I'd be gone. That was all that was left that was around me. I was watching TV and I just had this weird realization. I just went, why am I here? Why am I waiting? Why am I still here? Why don't I just get in my car and go home now? Why am I waiting to have a drink with a bunch of people who've been lying about me and making nonsense up that I've had other people believe it? When the reality is, I only like one person who's actually here, and that was a chef called Graham. I had all the time in the world for Graham. Really good guy. He kept me afloat. You know, he knew I wasn't doing well, and he was the only guy I could rely on. And I just packed up my car, got in the car, drove to the complex, went in the kitchen, gave Graham my keys to where I was staying, and I said, just go and help yourself to whatever's left, and then give them back to that muppet who's currently looking after the place. And I'll see you around. And I went. I also forgot my medication. But the thing is, what I realised was once I got back to Manchester and started living a bit more normally again, was I was taking medication for the reason I was in. So I was in this perpetual motion of keeping myself unhappy and then needing to take a medication to reduce the unhappiness which was caused by what I was doing. So it was just this cycle crazy cycle continuing. And that's where it kind of gave birth for my tenets for life. I've got to make sure three things are always in effect. One of them is, if there's toxic people in your life, get rid of them. I don't care who they are. I don't care if their title is mum, dad, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend. No. If the people in your life don't genuinely want the best for you, get rid of them. Because there's no point in having them around. Don't do anything for them. Just, no, I'd rather have a very small circle of quality people instead of having a quantity of people. I've had friends of over 20 years who didn't want the best for me, and now I don't know them anymore. That's fine. I'm not suffering because I was the people pleaser. I did for them. They didn't do for me. So I've missed out on nothing. My first rule is get rid of toxic people. The second rule is get rid of toxic environments. So that could be the job you do. I don't do that job anymore. I've left jobs. The last 3 jobs I've left is because it became toxic. No worries, I'll go somewhere else. I don't stick around and stress it out anymore because I know I don't need to. The same value of money is the same value of money no matter where I go and work. As long as I get the same rate, I'm not bothered anymore. I will change my environment. I didn't want to live where I was living in Manchester, which is why I don't live in Manchester anymore, because the area I lived, it was out of the streets you walk down, just stunk of weed, and that's not a smell I'm into. Music blasting out of windows on warm days, people congregating in front gardens, having parties, dogs barking, they've all got the tops off, they weigh 7 stone wet through. It just all drove me mad. I didn't want to be around that. I didn't want that to be my forever future. So I made sure I worked hard and ended up living where I want to live. But don't let it fool you. It took me to get on the wrong side of 40 for things to settle down a little bit. You don't get anything you want straight away. I've had to graft for decades to get what I've got now. And now I've got to sustain it. So you never take your foot off the gas. So toxic people, cut them out. Toxic environments, change them. I don't care how slow and steady it's got to be to get there, but you've got to make them changes. And the third one is you should only care about things you can control. And I cared too much about things that were outside of my control. What was within my control was to get in my car to leave the toxic environment and the toxic people behind. And I didn't do it because I was too focused on making sure my friend who trusted me was all right. And I ended up on medication because of that. No. So I had a big wake-up call for what I was doing, and it's all my fault. I know it's all my fault. But I've never taken medication for mental health since because I stick so strongly to my tenets. No toxic people, no toxic environments, and only focus and care about what I can control or attribute control to. And believe it or not, things got better with those 3 things in place, and I continue to this day to do those 3 things. I need to tweak them, I need to adjust them and make sure they all line up every now and again because they do fall out of sync in a live world that we live in, but I stay true to that because that's what I owe myself. I don't want to take medication over something I can control and make better myself because I don't want to block things, and that's the point. I know we're all different, but the reason I don't want to take medication is because I need to feel how I'm supposed to feel in its purest and most raw form. I want to know how I feel to know how I have to deal with it. If I'm too stressed, then what am I going to do to alleviate that stress? I've got to choose the natural way of doing it. So I've got to toughen myself up and I've got to challenge what is causing me a stress. If people are speaking ill of me, I can't sneak away and take medication and just let them carry on doing it. Now I've got to get the resolve to challenge them and say that again? I'm right here. I just need to make sure I control me and control what goes on around me in the best way I possibly can, because at the end of the day, no matter who's in your life, you could be in a room with 1,000 people and still feel alone. I've got my back. I'm my strongest ally. I will always back me up because I know that this guy isn't doing anything bad for others on purpose. So I'll protect him, therefore I've got to look after him. And as much as I'll put all sorts of poisons in my system with having a beer every now and again and takeaways and things like that, I don't want to put more in which I can control another way. Because I need to feel my feelings, and I need to feel them properly. I need to feel them in the way that they're designed to be felt. I need to know what I'm left with. I need to know there is no stone unturned as to why I feel the way I do. If I have a bad reaction and I have a temper, I need to know how to control that temper, because it's not good to let it out. I've told you in earlier videos, I am always full of rage. I am the Incredible Hulk just before he changes. But it's what I do with it that matters, and it never comes out of its cage unless I'm doing a bit of exercise, and then I can do it on that. So I need to feel things to know how to control things. I need to feel things to alter my environment and alter what I do. I need to feel it to know who to get rid of. And I also need it for this reason. I need to feel good feelings. And when I wasn't feeling bad feelings, when I was taking the medication, I also didn't appreciate good feelings. I ended up in this very limbotic state. I was in limbo. I was just going through life like a zombie. I didn't like that, because I didn't look forward to the things I used to look forward to, and I had no appreciation for the things I used to appreciate, because the bad feelings were blocked, and that's great, but so were the good feelings, which isn't great. And I have this thing which is always rent-free in my head that I can always do. And that is, all I've got to do is wait for winter, wait for cold weather, and I can get in my car whenever I want. I can be all wrapped up. Best temperature would be -3, -4. And I can set the dog, and I can go down to a beach, and I can walk right to the water's edge. And I can feel the cold, I can feel the wind, but I'm nice and wrapped up. I'm not too bothered by it. And I can watch that water. And I can see the sharpness because of the temperature. I can see the spray sat on top of it. I can see the darkness of the water because of the temperature. I can hear the roar of the water and the roar of the waves. And I can look around, and I'm the only person on earth, because nobody else is there. Nobody else is silly enough to be stood there except me. Dog loves it. He's not bothered. Now that feeling, when I feel it in its raw, pure form, 10 minutes can heal a month. That's my place. That's what I appreciate. That's what I love. That's what I like to feel. I like to feel good feelings. I like to feel humble feelings. I like to feel like that. Now, at the time, I lived at a beach, and I had no interest in that feeling. But that feeling, to me, is so important. It's one of the reasons I love winter so much, because I know I can do that at any drop of a hat. I've even booked to take the dog away in November near a large body of water. So it's not the sea, but it's near a body of water, just so I can get that feeling, because I know how much I need it. And by taking medication, it blocked that feeling for me. And there aren't many successes. There aren't many, good feelings and happiness and, love thy neighbour things. They're rare these days. Everybody hates one another. It's a weird world. So when I finally get to feel good, I want to feel it. Oh, I want to feel it. The stress I'll put myself through, I want to know it's got a reward. I want to feel reward. I want to feel achievement. I can't do that if I'm blocked. That's why, my friends, I don't take medication. If you need it, no problem. No problem at all. But anyway, I hope that helped somehow, however it could. But until next time, thanks for watching, and keep smiling.